Welcome.
Thank you.
To our listeners, welcome to a very special edition of the Creator Sessions. We are doing a special series on Emirati Women's Day, and we have the privilege to be sat here today with Mariam Al Meraikhi. She is the Communications and Media Consultant for UAE Year of. She's also on the committee for the 51st UAE National Day. She's also an all-around superhuman.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
We did want to speak with some Emirati women in our community and our wider network who genuinely inspire us, and you exemplify that. So thanks for having us.
I appreciate it.
So today we wanted to speak with you mostly about you. So we'll be talking about your work with the UAE Year of, the National Day, your personal projects, and different communities that you're involved in within the UAE. Also, to our listeners who don't know me, I'm Tala, longtime listener, first-time host of this podcast.
You got this.
Thank you so much for the encouragement. Okay, so we'll just get started then. We did want to kick off with some general conversation on sustainability in the UAE. So what can you tell us about the Year of Sustainability, what it means? And I know that the objective and the mission is to encourage sustainable practices in the UAE. So how are we doing that?
Great. So we've been involved in the Year of Sustainability for this year, to 2023, and we've been planning for it a bit longer than that, because this year, unlike any other themed year in the UAE, it's focused on behavior change. So the Year of Sustainability is mainly focused on the domestic public, so everyone who calls the UAE home. And with the sustainability being such a wide and complex topic, we've also invited experts in sustainability from different backgrounds here in the UAE to support us in the narrative and how we can drive sustainable behavior. So we're looking at specific topics, things that me and you can do in our everyday life, because usually people, when they think of sustainability, it's like, oh, it's the government's job.
Yeah.
Or, oh, it's the companies.
Not my problem.
It's not my problem.
Yeah.
But it is our collective and individual burden. What we are doing here to our land.
Absolutely.
Is what we have caused. And it can be reversed if we start changing our behavior today for tomorrow.
That is very true. It's the endless debate, isn't it, of individual action versus kind of corporate action. Yep. So do we do this grassroots or do we do this top-down? In my opinion, it's a bit of both. How do you feel about that?
I agree. So it's a collective effort. And one of the things that we are doing in the Year of Sustainability is to bring in and unify the efforts from the stakeholders, like agencies, companies, and governments who already have a lot of initiatives and policies within sustainability. But we're kind of trying to simplify it or find focus areas where the individuals can add value. So it's things like responsible consumption. We talk about reducing red meat intake, increasing plant-based food.
That's a tough one
slow
here.
fashion. It is a tough one. And again, we're not saying to cut it out completely. We're not asking people to become fully vegetarian or vegan. That is not what we're here for. It's if you are, good for you. Thank you for your contribution to the environment. And if not, it's just about thinking of ways how to reduce red meat intake once a week or twice a week.
Absolutely.
Start somewhere, start small. And it's things that include, or start with the things that make more sense to you. And something I always bring up is, what's wrong with kushari?
Honestly,
what's
nothing.
wrong with pizza?
Nothing.
You know, like, why can't we once a week focus on, on Meatless Mondays?
Yeah.
This is one of the initiatives, is to focus on alternative foods.
I'm a Mjaddara fan myself.
Hello. That's delicious. So it's things like that, like making small changes.
Absolutely.
That can have a big impact. And we might not see it immediately, but it's something that is long lasting.
Yeah.
It's also things like stopping single-use plastic.
Yeah.
So we're not saying all plastic is bad, but the single-use approach to anything is, or the way that we dispose of the single-use plastic is what's harming the environment, because plastic takes a long time to degrade. And how can we make it more sustainable in the way that we segregate our trash, recycle, upcycle? It's small things like how our moms used to use the Quality Street boxes.
Yes. You mean the sewing kit boxes?
The sewing kit boxes. For me, it was never a sewing kit box. It was a burga box.
Okay.
So my mom had her baraga in the box, and
it's a good use.
Never chocolate. And that was always funny to me when people say sewing kit. I'm like, I don't relate.
What?
I know it's the same concept, but it's the Vimto bottles that turn into,
olive oil,
anything, like it's that finding new life for the elements that we use,
Absolutely.
the resources. So we've become extensive, and I want to say this, like we've become consumers. We are consuming more than we give back. So I think it's finding the balance between give and take. So as we take, we need to give back and find ways to give back.
Absolutely. I think in a lot of cases, and I know this is something that the Year of Sustainability is effectively doing, is focusing on education. A lot of people don't, we're blessed that a lot of people are becoming more and more aware. I'll preface with that. But a lot of people don't know just how harmful kind of mass farming is, just how many emissions come from the production of meat.
Yes.
We don't make that connection naturally unless we've at some point been enlightened somehow.
True.
So it's so important to be doing this work. And I don't think there's anything wrong with kushari. I don't think anybody thinks there's anything wrong with pizza.
Yes.
And it's just that they don't necessarily realize that by having pizza today instead of, more meat, they're doing a small part in...
Or a beautiful manouche.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you for pandering to me and my Lebanese nature. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you face, just speaking on changing these habits, some of the biggest challenges that you face in changing behaviors?
Yes. So with the work that we're doing, we're always looking inward as well. Like, what kind of behavior can we change? And honestly, some of the things have been a struggle to start. So I started with small things. Like, for example, I don't buy water bottles at home. I have a cooler, and I fill in my...
Cooler.
Team cooler. And I realized in the beginning of the year that I don't carry my bottle with me when I go out. I only drink from it when I'm home. And that was a moment for me, like, why don't I? And it's kind of like the social norm. Like, I'm used to going to places where they have water. Like, at the office, there's some water. At my friends' places, they have water. But for me, it was a statement. How can I make that statement and bring more people into that awareness? Why am I ashamed to carry my water bottle?
Oh, no.
Just because not everyone else is doing it. So it's about starting small from your existing habits. Other things like, for example, and this is the biggest impact on our air, the air that we breathe and the quality of air that we breathe, is car emissions. So finding ways maybe that make sense. So instead of, like, we are promoting using public transport, but we're also promoting shared rides. So if we're all heading together to the same destination, why don't we take a ride together?
Yeah.
First of all, it's gonna help us not get more traffic fines, less traffic congestion in the roads, and it helps our air quality. So it does affect our health, our finances, and we're looking at every one of these behaviors on how it affects us in different ways.
Definitely.
So if we think about sustainability in the sense that it's how it's impacting, how sustainability is impacting our lives and our environment. Usually people relate sustainability only to environment, but this is only one of the pillars. The other pillar is our community, ourselves,
Yeah.
and our resources. So when we're talking finances or existing resources, how can we make better use of them instead of just, use it and trash it?
Actually, good point. Speaking on pillars, I know that we've segmented the main objectives of the Year of Sustainability into kind of 3 distinct elements that go into really changing these behaviors on a global scale. Could you tell us a little bit about what those kind of 3 elements are, just briefly, what they mean, and what kind of actions we're encouraging people to adjust?
So the 3 main pillars that we're looking at is responsible consumption, conservation, and climate action. And it was a bit difficult to look at climate action from an individual point of view.
Definitely, that's the big one.
But when we get closer to COP, we're going to dive in a bit more into that. So it's things like saving energy and water at home. It's cost efficient. It's also helping the environment. So thinking about alternative ways, like when you're using the water tap, just close it. Like if you're not using it, don't waste the water. It's a very scarce resource.
So much more scarce than people realize.
Exactly.
We've all grown up, or most of us have grown up with just this access to clean water at our fingertips, and we really take for granted how much of a luxury that actually is.
It is.
And how scarce it is. Yeah.
It is a luxury, and alhamdulillah, we are blessed to be in a place and time where this resource is provided for us, but because of that we don't realize how scarce it is, so sometimes we take it for granted and we waste it. Other elements like leaving no trace of waste.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go to the public, and we also take that for granted, is that there's someone who will clean after us. So even if we're in deserts or in the beach, pick up behind yourself. Don't leave things behind, especially trash, especially plastic. That goes into the water, that goes in, turns into microplastics when the fish eat it, and then we eat it. And that's a huge problem. Like, people don't realize that the amount of plastic that we eat. That's crazy. When I found this out this year, and I'm like, okay, this is news.
And those plastics can, in some cases, be extremely toxic, extremely hazardous, in some cases carcinogenic. And we ingest this just based on the fact that we're in many ways drowning in this waste that we've created.
Definitely.
If you'll allow me to go on a little tangent.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that I really strongly drives like my personal my vision of my own impact, if that makes any sense. My sustainable footprint. When I first came to the UAE many moons ago, when I was but a wee lass, we were just talking off camera. I mean, I grew up partially in Montreal. And, we were taught these tenets of like recycling and whatever, reduce, recycle, reuse from, when we were in kindergarten. And then coming here way back in the day, like in the early 2000s, I didn't see as much of that, like I didn't see nearly as much of an emphasis and a focus on conservation. And I think we were still living in a period where we were just a little bit blind to our own action. And one of the things that I love about Year of in general, UAE Year of, is that we're not afraid to look inwards, and like we were saying, to re-examine and reassess our behaviors and be open to changing them. And to the credit of that, I have seen such a massive change in the mentality, especially if you look at school-age children today, from when they were in the early 2000s. These things are becoming second nature to them. We've made such huge strides. Of course, I mean, the mountain peak is still sky high. But that's global. And just for our little country, we've made such huge strides in a short amount of time.
You're absolutely right. And in some of the interviews and conversations we've been having, I sat with experts that talked about this issue as well. When we talk about mission to zero, it is a big goal to aspire to, but the destination isn't the goal here. It's the journey.
How friends we make along the way.
Exactly, exactly, and it's the journey of getting to zero emissions, zero waste, zero, etc. So it's about how can we reduce, because we have been consuming a lot, and unfortunately,
and wasting.
Unfortunately, the UAE is one of the top countries with food waste, which creates greenhouse gas emissions, and that honestly does not reflect our values.
No.
When we talk about things like حفظ النعمة, things like sharing food, hospitality. In one of the sessions I had, someone asked me, how does this conflict with our values of hospitality? When we talk about one of the in responsible consumption, we talk about food portioning for gatherings. Like, we are so used to over ordering, to make sure that there is types of food and amounts of food.
This is an Arab cultural problem across the Middle East.
Is.
And you feel like you're going to be judged or seen badly if you're not providing over the amount of food necessary.
And that question stopped me. I'm like, yes, hospitality is one of our values in the UAE, but there's a more core value, which is عدم الهدر. And that talks about not wasting, and not taking things for granted. When we waste food, it is, and when you think about it, it's not something to be proud of as humans. You know, it doesn't align with our values in our way of life or in our religions. No matter which religion we're coming from, I think most religions actually agree on this.
I was going to say, growing up, if you left food in your plate, it was very high ni'mat Allah, you can't just leave it,
And I remember they'd scare us with ni'mat Allah بتلحقك يوم القيامة. I don't know if you had the same experience.
Didn't go that far.
And another thing was that إذا العيش طاح, like if the rice fell on the floor, if you pick it up, for each thing you pick up, you get ajr. And you get, points. And I think that kind of, if we think about it, hospitality does not mean overspending or or showing off.
It's not about showing off.
You know, it's not about showing off. Hospitality is about sharing what we have.
You're right.
And I've heard so many stories of, people in the past who they had nothing but a sheep, and when guests came, they would feed them from
I heard the same stories.
Yeah. I think
everyone knew the same neighbors with that one sheep.
But honestly, like, these things make you think, like, okay, hospitality means providing what you have, but it's not over indulging. It's not, again, like with food portioning for gatherings, you'll be saving money. You'll be saving food from being wasted. And even if you have leftover foods, sometimes think about like restoring your leftovers to eat them, or giving it to حفظ النعمة and to people who would appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And just to you mentioned it's across cultures, across different religions, across different traditions, the same real tenets about not wasting and not being so, like, it's not about your pride or your arrogance, and also gluttony being a sin, all of these, it all comes back to the same. So, like, I don't know how we've strayed so far from reconciling those concepts, It's
the consumerism mentality, like, and we've had time to think about that, like, with our speedy development, like, there was a time in the UAE where it was about uniting when we started the unity, but then there was a point in time, and not just the UAE, where there was rapid human development.
Yeah.
When it comes to globalization, the internet of things,
Yeah.
and
everything was accelerated.
ordering things and having easy access.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there weren't many restaurants for us to order from at any time.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
any time of day. And when we look back at things as well, so I love this story because back in the day when fishermen used to go and fish for food, they would only take what they need.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of their awareness about sustainability. It was because they didn't have anywhere to store it in, like a freezer or refrigerator. They would only take what they need for that day. And if anything is left over, they would يملحونا, so salt it, put salt on it in order to preserve it. And if they captured many fish, they would put some back because they are aware that means there will be more fish to get tomorrow.
I love that principle of putting something back or taking only what you need from nature as well. And you're right, consumerism and like this very like capitalist driven culture has strayed us all from that. I think what is essentially a human instinct. Our instinct is not to take every single fruit off the tree because the next person who walks up to it is going to need to eat. But I think this kind of corrupting influence of how can I capitalize on this, makes you want to take everything.
And even like the over purchase or ordering when it comes to fashion.
Yes.
Shopping has become
that's a whole rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole, honestly. And it's because of the ease of access.
Yeah.
But we don't think about all the things that, or the ripple effect of all these things. So yes, sometimes you can find things that are cheaper, but that also means the value of that thing is much less. So you will be spending more because you'll be buying more. And if we think about the things that we purchased that was of high value, and see its quality, see its longevity, how long it stays with us. And that goes back to the idea of single-use plastic, single-use anything.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we would order from an online shop and wear that thing once.
Yeah.
And then realize it's, we don't like the fabric, we don't like the style, and then we throw it away. And why don't we upcycle it? Turn it into a bag? I don't know.
Tablecloth, I don't know. There's endless things that we can touch on when it comes to adjusting our behaviors, encouraging those sustainable practices, awareness on what our actions, what consequences our actions have, and to the listeners who are interested in also learning more, finding out more about this, doing your own research. If any of this was new to you, definitely follow UAE Year of on all their socials. And Mariam, is there anywhere else that they can find more of this information?
So they can check our social channels. We are everywhere: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads. UAE Year of, and also our website www.uaeyearof.ae, where they can also find sustainability guides. So we have released the second edition of the sustainability guides, which the first one talked about responsible consumption and some tips on how we can be more responsible in our way of life and consumerism. And the second edition, which was released recently, is about conservation. And it talks about how we can be more caring towards our land and environment.
Yeah, and the flora and fauna within. Before we kind of move on from the sustainability endless rabbit hole, I wanted to touch on COP28 and maybe end on a little bit of a positive note. So as we are on the road to COP28 currently, and we quickly approach the conference, what are some things that you can share with us that are initiatives that you know of that stand out to you that the government or kind of the public sector is undertaking to prepare the nation for the hosting of COP?
So COP28 is a big conference of the parties that's happening in the UAE for the first time. And what's different about this COP is that they are looking at the stocktake. So the Paris Agreement that happened with the first COP. They are reviewing the promises or the targets that they have made and if they have achieved it. So this is why this is a special conference. It's about evaluating ourselves as nations. So I think with that, there are so many initiatives that are happening across the UAE. If there are any also other initiatives that the audience would like to share with us, then please do, because we are at that point where we want to look at not just government and organizations' initiatives, we also want to look at individuals' initiatives when it comes to, for example, planting mangroves or whatever creative thing that you might be doing. So one of the things that will be closer to COP and announced around that time is some of the production approaches. So
amazing.
We've been looking at how we can be more responsible in our or sustainable in our production approach in the year of sustainability.
Manufacturing
wise as well. So we're looking at, for example, taking date pits and converting them into pins for the year of sustainability.
I love that.
We're looking at sand and basically upcycling some of those materials into and giving it new life instead of adding it into the landfill, the waste landfill. Other things we looked at as well, and all of these things that I'm mentioning, it's mainly to help people in the creative industry understand that there are other ways to approach production. It's only to inspire.
Yeah.
One other thing that we've done is we've looked at some of our existing inventory of items from the year of the 50th. And we are upcycling some of those jackets, creating tote bags and other product designs instead of using new material. Maybe this is an idea for other businesses to look at their inventory and how they can redesign and upcycle those items. Cool. And for individuals, I would just ask them to make a choice. And it's always about choices. Someone asked me if this is easy or hard to be sustainable. It is a journey, but it's not as hard as we think it is. It just takes one step that makes sense to you as an individual to start from, and
go from there.
Go from there.
Yeah.
Every step counts, honestly.
Absolutely. Just to go back to what we were talking about earlier, how it's kind of second nature to us. So it's just about waking up that nature that probably already exists within you. Yes. It's how your ancestors, went about their lives. So it's in there somewhere. Moving on rather abruptly to the National Experts Program. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the National Experts Program is? I know that you went through the program and then it kind of inspired you or helped you to kickstart your own business, which we'll get into.
So maybe I'll find a segue to get to the National Experts Program because within the Year of Sustainability, we have the Sustainability Experts Network, and some of those members are actually from the National Experts Program. And why we chose these candidates, it's first of all based on their experience in sustainability, but also because the National Experts Program has prepped them for to take this role in thinking like an expert and acting like a leader and being able to advise on a national level. So the National Experts Program was launched in 2019 by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the UAE. And it was with the core focus to develop the national kawadir.
Like talents?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with the objective to develop the national talents and expertise in specific sectors related to the UAE's vision. So one exciting thing about a National Experts Program, or NEP for short, is that each candidate is in their own sector. And so, for example, I was in the media and creative industries sector. But there was no one else in the media. There was someone in medicine, someone in tourism, someone in...
So all by yourself.
Exactly. So it was more of a collaboration approach rather than a competitive approach, because you're not competing with anyone else in your sector. You're just finding ways to link or finding ways to collaborate with other sectors to improve your own sector for the UAE. So the program prepped us through academics, through different learning approaches. Part of the NEP experience is that each of the experts had their mentor. So it would be people like ministers or director generals, so high-level public figures in the UAE related to the sectors that we were in. So because I was in the media and creative industries sector, my mentor was Her Excellency Mariam Al Meraikhi, Director General of Dubai Media Office. She holds other hats as well and other roles in the government.
That's a great mentor to have.
I know. Honestly, I had the privilege of working with her and shadowing her in several of the occasions, like the World Government Summit, some other initiatives or events that we've attended. And through that work, she helped guide me in the project that we were working to enhance the media and creative industries in the UAE. So this was part of our work, is like during those 9 months, we had to pitch an idea based on all the tools that they've provided us, all the information that we've gathered, all the trends. So we also looked at global trends of media and creative industries, specifically in my sector, to find ways how to improve our sectors for the development in the UAE. And part of the findings is that the top countries that are doing well in media and creative industries are actually all leading from a private sector.
Okay.
And to me, that was one of the gaps that I've looked into for the UAE, is that we need to find ways to amplify the efforts in the private sector for
public sector.
The private sector.
Ah.
So this is what's happening here, is that the efforts have been led by the government to try to support the creative industries.
Okay.
But in order for us to thrive and develop economically, it needs to be pushed from the private sector as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's an amazing kind of proof point to work through. What would you say kind of were your biggest takeaways or your biggest learnings having passed through the program?
So one of the things that I've learned from the program is that you need to create or pave your own way as an expert. It doesn't end the level of expertise. It's the levels of learning. So you need to continue striving to learn and find new ways. We've had some courses about agility, about mind mapping, about it was really cool stuff. But also we've done media training to be able to represent our sector in different situations or different في بالي كلمة محافل في محافل مختلفة. And one of the biggest takeaways that now when I look back at the journey since 2019 is that NEP didn't just help me. It wasn't that NEP gave me a push or a spotlight. NEP gave me the tools. And it's what I did with those tools that I've been given to pave my way in the media and creative industries. That's what every individual needs to work on. So sometimes life gives you things, lemons, for example, and what do you make with it?
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. I think sometimes that's really all you need. All of the things are within you to be able to create something, do something amazing, start something. But you do need the tools, you need the guidance, and just really the cheerleading, the vote of confidence goes such a long way.
Because it was honestly like starting an EP at that point in that time of my life, it was a huge burden to carry and to think of. We were the first batch in NEP. We sat there in the Founders Memorial, and I don't know if you can edit some pictures in this, but
you sure can.
But it was a moment. So it was launched with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and he was telling us, looking at us in our eyes, and telling us like, "I'm so proud that today we have experts we can say that we have experts, national experts, to lead in their sectors. And that was...
That's high praise. That's the highest praise.
And it's not just that, it was a responsibility.
Yes.
In that moment,
Yeah.
listening to the president telling us, it's like, okay, what
Now I
else?
have to do something.
I have to do something. I can't just sit there.
Yeah.
And funny thing is that we finished our NEP program in 2019, and in 2020 the pandemic hit.
Yep. We remember.
We remember that clearly.
Yeah, that was a strange time for the entire planet. You came off the tail of NEP into COVID. How did that then, 1 + 2 equal you founding or co-founding Astrocloud, which is your personal project?
Yes, so Astrocloud Studios came out of a need. So during the pandemic and while working remotely and seeing how things really have changed in every sector. Every sector has been impacted, and I remember that was a time where me and the fellows from NEP were gathering, having meetings virtually, having expert talks and discussions on how has it impacted our sector, what can we do, what does it mean going forward. And during that research I found an opportunity, and it was an opportunity of a need to focus on creative industries, and to basically adapt and disrupt the way that the creative industries work here in the UAE. And so me and my co-founder, Shog Muzaffar, who is a product designer, she works a lot with traditional handicrafts. She
Amazing.
created the first Nike shoes made out of sadu as part of House of Artisans. So that was like the way that we work together is like very compatible to find ways to develop the creative industries. And for me, honestly, it started with myself. I have dropped the ball on my creative side as an artist throughout those years after university. And during the pandemic, that was the only thing that gave me hope again.
Sustained you.
Sustained me mentally, is that I was able to do art again. And while doing that, I realized that there are different ways that people can generate income in the creative industries. And there should be. There should be, because not everyone needs to have an office job or work at an office or in the government or in the private sector in order to make a living. Everyone works differently, and the way that we are all connected, and we have different resources or different skill sets. So how can we bring that to the table?
Yeah.
So when we first started Astrocloud, we worked with different creatives, from musicians to artists to gamers and esports organizations, to find ways to support the creative industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them has its own struggles. Each of them has its own opportunities, honestly.
Especially during COVID.
Exactly.
I think that was the time in which we saw just how much the different spheres of the creative industries rely on interactions with others, you know? And really, if you think about it, it's one of those spheres that really sparks joy, brings people happiness, you know, makes their day a little bit better, makes them laugh, makes them cry, makes them feel something. Yeah. And so we owe so much to those artists and those creatives that bring us this, you know, just pleasure, this joie de vivre. And then suddenly to cut that off at the knees and along with it, cut off their livelihoods was such a kind of disheartening thing to happen. Yeah. So it's very, very impactful work that you're doing to kind of be able to diversify that stream of revenue, just to make sure that they're compensated.
And the way that we see it is that, because I've seen also different agencies work where they have designers, for example, who work on different projects that might not be of interest. So the way that we approach it is we look at the project, that we receive, either from a small business, a government entity, whoever the client is, and find or matchmake with some of the creatives that are interested to work on such projects, because creative industries are purely a passion-driven economy, and if the people working on the project aren't interested, then you can't get the best out of them. So we found ways to disrupt the system also. You don't have to have your own license. You can freelance with us.
Amazing.
You don't have to do the whole proposals and the
jump through every hoop.
Exactly. The work that kind of kills the creativity.
Yes.
Focus on what you're best at, and let us help you get the generate the income that helps you
facilitating the work in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So important.
And throughout these 2 years, we've also reassessed and adapted as Astrocloud on the needs basis. So we've noticed that there's different things that the current situation or the environment in the UAE needs. We've also looked at the trends. So the way that we work is very much adaptable. So yes, we are supporting creative industries, but we're also very much looking at what is the need and what are the resources available. And we work with people from the region and not just the UAE to bring in different creative mindsets, different backgrounds. Because honestly, the pandemic taught us that we can work from literally anywhere. And the way that we approach the work now is kind of support and collaborate with other agencies to find the best narrative when it comes to a cultural context, like cultural creativity.
Mm-hmm.
The UAE has been doing a lot of great things, but I've also looked at some of the pain points for me, I would say. We don't have Emirati content.
Mm-hmm.
Or
not nearly enough.
Not nearly enough. We have content that could fit anywhere in the world. You can take it, place it in any other country, and it would work.
And that's why when we do see that Emirati content or artwork or even something like comedy, we identify so strongly with it, and we like it so much because it's like we only get these small glimmers or these little nuggets, and they're so good.
Exactly, and it's finding ways not to compete with other agencies, but to collaborate with other agencies to consult them on the best creative approach in storytelling and development of projects, and like creative industries and media, or I would say Control A. You select all. You do so many things. But we're also trying to be more focused on what is needed actually from Astrocloud in this industry, and how can we help us get there. And maybe in a few years when you ask me, the whole model of Astrocloud would be adapting to a new need.
That's just a mark of a good business, is one that is able to stop, reassess and reevaluate, and then be able to reinvent itself where necessary.
And it kind of, for me, it's about also finding, and this is where my work kind of ties up, it's also finding the most sustainable way of resourcing. Resourcing not just in terms of production, but also resourcing the skill sets for the projects.
There's always improvements that can be made, and that has to adapt as we evolve as a nation, as people, and as a planet. I wanted to get your input as well on the kind of creative ecosystem and landscape of the UAE. Shout out to Warehouse 421 for being kind of this hub of creativity and like a network for artists and creative individuals in Abu Dhabi and across the UAE. What does this landscape look like today? How has it evolved of late? And how has your work with Astrocloud been able to kind of, maybe piece together a lot of those different pieces of the narrative that are scattered across the country?
So, I mean, there are so many spaces that provide that support from, like, whether they're government-led or private. And we've noticed that there is a need from from the government and from the people to find those spaces to work with. And the type of work that we do is that we want to complement the efforts that are being made in Warehouse 41 or other locations across the UAE. And it's also for us trying to find an alternative way of working. So maybe the artists don't, like, they have social anxiety. They can't work. They can't work with other creatives.
Yeah.
But once you give them their own safe space to work in, they can give you so much. So, and honestly, I think I just want to take one step back to mention something, and this is also another need or another perspective that helped us define the way that we work, is that during the pandemic we were looking at people of determination and the way of integrating them into the work and also in schools. There is so much potential when it comes to people of determination that a normal or a traditional way of working in an office does not really help them thrive. So if you create the right environment, they are no longer disabled. So we are disabling them with the environments that we have created.
That is so beautiful.
So we're determined to provide the right space and the right environment for them to make a living also through this, because honestly they think on a whole nother level. From my experience and my work, they operate on another dimension, and this is one of the things, like when you talk about neurodiversity, it's also diversifying the ways that we think or approach things. It comes with its own challenges, but it's about developing our own opportunities in that way of working.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about you, Mariam, as a big fan, is really you are driven by passion, whether it comes to your work with the Year of Sustainability, to your personal projects, like bringing the creative community together and making sure they can put food on the table and that they can monetize their work, into all of the kind of community involvement and the things that you care about. Really, you're just driven by passion and a desire to make an impact and to help others, which is so beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Big fan. Emirati Women's Day is really born out of a desire to celebrate Emirati women and their achievements, and in a lot of ways you exemplify that. So I'm so glad that we could sit here and celebrate you in this way.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Where can some of the listeners find you, follow you? How can they get involved with the National Experts Program, should they want to? And then also, how can they get in touch with Astrocloud, should they want to be involved?
So you can find the National Experts Program at UAE NEP on social, and UAENEP.ae on their website. So they have applications every year for a new cohort. I've been working with the cohorts 2 and 3 as well, and I look forward to as the alumni of NEP, because honestly it is a network, and we do find ways to work together to expand our efforts collectively. And if you want to find us, hi@astrocloud.ae. That's also our website, astrocloud.ae, and also on socials, astrocloud.ae. I just wanted to thank the women that have paved this way for us, to the Emirati women that paved the way to get us to where we are, and to inspire us to be able to believe in ourselves, that we can make a difference too. I understand that sometimes it's a struggle, but the way that our country and our leadership believes in women, believes in our contribution collectively, that's honestly what helps drive my passion, is that I'm limitless. And because I have that support, I can do so much. And I would ask all the Emirati women to follow their passion, follow their dreams, and don't let anything stop you.
Hear, hear. Well, here's to you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for having us. Thank you for speaking with us. It's been a pleasure as always.
Always with you, Tala. Thank you so much.
Of course. To our listeners, if you did enjoy this episode, if you enjoyed our chat with Mariam, definitely listen to the other episodes in the series where we get to speak to other highly impressive Emirati women such as Mariam. So yeah, look out for those episodes.
I'm going to tune in as well.